Welcome to the Grand Theft World podcast, hosted and sponsored by members over here at grandtheftworld.com. We don't have ad reads and we don't have commercials and we don't have sponsors, so we can just be going through the news, live streaming and analyzing it into the wee hours of the morning so we can cover the past week's news with little analysis and historical context that you need to understand the world. A lot has gone on in the past week, so let's just rewind a little quick here. Remember back in 2020, it wasn't just Joe Biden in office. There was a thing called COVID going around, and well, you could get censored from the internet if you asked the wrong questions back then. Now there's a congressional report that basically is relaying to everybody that all those conspiracy theories 4 years ago have now matured into reasonable facts that are now accepted in the political landscape and the media landscape, no longer getting you banned. Along with that news comes sad news. By January 21st, Peter Hotez predicts there will be new pandemics and epidemics and viruses to deal with. Just as soon as Trump takes the White House, they have another bevy of things biological wise to hit you with. Now, if you remember right before Trump took office last time, Tony Fauci famously said that Trump would face an a pandemic of unprecedented proportions, I believe he worded it. So they're kind of foreshadowing their game plan again. Aside from the medical news, we had a lot of eyes in the skies this past week. A lot of unidentified flying objects over New Jersey, over New York, continually being reported. It's likely some sort of DOD, defense contractor, new technology they're going to be shipping over to the Ukraine war or to this new Syrian situation that we'll hear about in a second. We also had martial law declared in good time ally South Korea this past week. It wasn't a long-term thing, but it's just a sight of some of these countries that are involved in globalism having problems with their constituency agreeing with their actions. Another place where there was a strong disagreement this week was the very public assassination, a brazen assassination, you might say. That's the word that has been hung on it all week for the history. A brazen assassination of a United States CEO from a healthcare company. Done not in broad daylight because it was not daylight yet. It was still dark out, but it was done in front of a surveillance camera. And so the world got to see a man get shot 3 times on camera. And there's a lot of questions about it because it is one of the most heavily surveilled cities in the world. How can an individual penetrate its borders and do such things and then escape and still be on the run, unidentified as of now? There's a lot of interesting pieces of history that have been left, maybe pack with the monopoly money or the coded messages on his firearms ejected casings. There's a lot more to the story than meets the eye, so we're going to have to get into that tonight. And last but not least, within the last 24-hour regime that has controlled Syria for the past 50 years has been overthrown by rebels that were assisted by America, the UK, NATO, and a few other good time allies like Israel, who has seen fit to, well, someone must fill the Golan Heights with military antics. So Bibi Netanyahu has stepped in. He says it's only temporary that they're taking over that land. We'll see how temporary these types of things are as it unfolds in history. But without further ado, let's go to wearechange.org and thebestpoliticalshirts.com. Get his report from earlier today, which does include a good dose of the Syria information, because we won't get to that for about 6 or 7 hours. So let's go to Luke.
Well, it looks like there's going to be a lot of blowout sales on Facebook Marketplace with home decor from Syria. Yeah, wow, as that allegedly is the palace of Bashar al-Assad in Damascus, who, according to the initial reports here, had his plane go down as he was evacuating Syria, allegedly. All of this, as it's pretty clear here, the United States, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, and Israel are absolutely involved in this larger fall of Syria that's going to have a lot of ramifications behind it that are important to note here. And even though there's a lot of Western media outlets now celebrating this news, broadcasting photos in Assad in a Speedo, allegedly. We have to understand here, what happened today, the fall of Syria, is a major big deal, as what's happening right now should be a major cautionary tale of U.S. Western intervention and its larger consequences. All of this as today the Biden administration has announced an additional $988 million in aid to Ukraine. As a lot of people are saying, the Ukrainians, NATO, and other Western forces were directly involved here when it came to arming and training. A lot of these, quote, moderate Syrian rebels, as the videos that we're getting captured right now from the middle of Damascus are absolutely mind-blowing, as it looks like the Syrian military just literally stood down. Now, what is Iran doing? Hezbollah, Russia here? They're the close allies of Syria? Well, of course, we're going to be asking that question, as it's a significant question that makes people wonder what's really going on here. But the latest that we're getting from this particular news story is that Bashar al-Assad has fled Syria, and there are unconfirmed reports of his aircraft being shot down. All of this as the Biden administration will be having a national security team meeting about this particular issue, as it's important to note here that Joe Biden was the vice president of the United States when Brennan, Barack Obama, and Hillary Clinton initiated this larger coup against Bashar al-Assad and the Syrian government, which I think is now unfolding. As we're getting reports of thousands of Syrian soldiers fleeing to Iraq, as this 14-year-old crisis that has been weaponized and engineered by foreign governments is now playing out in the way that they wanted it to play out. We're looking at you, General Wesley Clark, who we spoke to and was absolutely shocked when we asked him about the larger plans by the military-industrial complex that look like they're being carried out. As what's happening here is the NATO, Turkey, and Israeli takeover of Syria is now underway, as the Prime Minister of Israel has just announced this, specifically with their larger government actions here that played a major role in this, especially when it came to bombing Bashar al-Assad, his government, and his military forces. Any kind of reinforcements that were also coming in specifically from Iran, as he also obliterated the Hezbollah forces inside of Lebanon that were also very closely aligned with Bashar al-Assad, as he just announced that during this very kind of tense, uncertain times that Israel is going to be taking more land away from Syria that was previously established as a buffer zone from the 1970s conflict that they had with that country, as the government there has fallen and now Israel will be taking more of their territory.
This is a historic day for the Middle East. The collapse of the Assad regime, the tyranny in Damascus, offers great opportunity, but also is fraught with significant dangers. This collapse is a direct result of our forceful action against Hezbollah and Iran, Assad's main supporters. It set off a chain reaction of all those who want to free themselves from this tyranny and its oppression. But it also means we have to take action against possible threats. One of them is the collapse of the Separation of Forces Agreement from 1974 between Israel and Syria. This agreement held for 50 years. Last night it collapsed. The Syrian army abandoned its positions. We gave the Israeli army the order to take over these positions to ensure that no hostile force embeds itself right next to the border of Israel. This is a temporary defensive position until a suitable arrangement is found. Equally, we send a hand of peace to all those beyond our border in Syria, to the Druze, to the Kurds, to the Christians, and to the Muslims who want to live in peace with Israel. We're going to follow events very carefully. If we can establish neighborly relations and a peaceful relations with the new forces emerging in Syria, that's our desire. But if we do not, we'll do whatever it takes to defend the state of Israel.
This is Alan Barancott just declared on Twitter that Israel invaded Syria and that Israel has taken control of Syrian land, seemingly without facing, quote, any opposition, as Israel is calling this a temporary land grab. But let's be honest here, they don't have the best track record of, take backsies. I think that's a fair assessment here to make, as a lot of people are speculating that now they will be taking more than the Golan Heights region, as we will see how this entire conflict plays out here, as it's clear that the Israelis had a major involvement here, as the Syrian government was a major thorn in its side, as Israel, as of late, cut Hezbollah off at its knees, acquired new territory, and in my opinion, probably worked out a deal with the Turks, with these, quote, moderate rebels, and have allowed it to expand its territory in the specific region, while also getting rid of one of its major chief enemies near its territory, as we're learning that the IDF actually conducted airstrikes inside of Syria, going after Air Force bases, weapons and defense systems, as well as intelligence facilities and other military structures that still remain inside of Syria, as Netanyahu is calling this a historic fall of Bashar al-Assad and is seen very gleefully and happy about this. So is, of course, the American corporate media that is running headlines like this. Quote, jubilation and gunfire as Syria celebrates the end of Assad's family half-century rule. The Guardian, also with an extremely biased CIA-influenced news headline here, saying from doctor to brutal dictator, the rise and fall of Syrian Bashar al-Assad. The French government was also very happy about this, as Emmanuel Macron took to Twitter and wrote, the barbaric state has fallen at last. I pay tribute to the Syrian people, to their courage, to their patience in this moment of uncertainty. I send them my wishes for peace, freedom, and unity. France will remain committed to the security of all in the Middle East. And let's just be honest here. Peace, freedom, and unity doesn't really come after Western intervention in the Middle East. And no matter how many people are celebrating this, we have to understand that there's going to be a massive vacuum of power, massive sectarian violence. And a lot of people inside of Syria right now, specifically the Kurds, the Christians, the Jews in that specific region, that are going to be facing a lot of adversity, to say it kindly. As Charlie Kirk said, if you thought Assad was bad, wait until you see what is coming next. As Candace Owens had a little bit more of a pointed comment here, saying Christians are about to be mass slaughtered. Pray for Syria. As Bashar al-Assad did allow people from all different kinds of religions to live peacefully inside of Syria. He didn't play ball with the U.S. petrodollar. He didn't play ball with this larger kind of pipeline that Western forces wanted to build through Saudi Arabia, through Syria, and of course into Europe, which of course would bypass Russia. As I think this larger kind of assessment here of what's happening here is a little bit more accurate and does play up to what we have seen happen in this particular region for over 14 years, as the United States government played a major key role in the upheaval that we have seen in Syria that have allowed the rise of radical Islamists, as the United States was directly supporting Sunni Wahhabists like Al-Qaeda, al-Nusra, and ISIS in the region in order to get rid of Bashar al-Assad. They've been doing this for over 14 plus years. And right now, specifically what just happened with Hezbollah, what just happened with Russia, the larger attacks between Israel and Iran, this is a particularly very weak situation for the Syrian government that I think Western powers saw at play here as a very kind of important piece on the chessboard, that they said, you know what, now's the perfect time to take this piece. And I think that's exactly what unfolded here. As Roger Stone puts it very concisely, saying the removal of Assad in Syria will work out as well as the removal of Gaddafi in Libya. Check out the human slave markets there today. The CIA needed to move quickly before Trump became president, and I think that's absolutely correct here. As in a rare moment of truth on MSNBC, we actually got a good perspective to the long history of all of this. As we have to understand here, there was Pentagon-backed rebels fighting CIA-backed rebels inside of Syria 14 years ago. As this has been long sought after territory, as its sphere of influence is very important to the larger kind of geopolitical piece in this larger war, in this larger conflict, that has a lot of moving components to it, a lot of countries invested in it. As it's fair to say, the way that this is all going to unfold from here is going to be very turbulent for the people of Syria and very beneficial for the geopolitical interests of Turkey, the United States, NATO, and of course Israel.
Out of control, this could escalate.
It's true, but I think we have to step back and not put this in partisan terms. This is a U.S. mistake that started 7 years ago. And I remember the day on your show when President Obama said, Assad must go. And I looked at you and Joe and I said, huh? How's he going to do that? Where's the policy for that?
Right. And
we know they sent in the CIA to overthrow Assad. The CIA and Saudi Arabia together in covert operations tried to overthrow Assad. It was a disaster. Eventually it brought in both ISIS as a splinter group to the jihadists that went in. It also brought in Russia. So we have been digging deeper and deeper and deeper. What we should do now is get out and not continue to throw missiles, not have a confrontation with Russia. 7 years has been a disaster under Obama continuing under Trump. This is what I would call the permanent state. This is the CIA, this is Pentagon, wanting to keep Iran and Russia out of Syria, but no way to do that. And so we have made a proxy war in Syria. It's killed 500,000 people, displaced 10 million, and I'll say predictably so, because I predicted it 7 years ago that there was no way to do this and that it would make a complete chaos. So what I would plead to President Trump is get out. Like his instinct told him, by the way. That was his instinct. But then all the establishment, the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Pentagon, everybody said, no, that's irresponsible. But his instinct is right. Get out. We've done enough damage, 7 years. And now we really risk a confrontation with Russia that is extraordinarily dangerous.
Wow, a rare moment of truth on the corporate media that, of course, rarely ever likes to talk about the larger kind of de-escalation strategies that, of course, are more rational than just blowing everything up and giving weapons, arms, and munitions to some of the most dangerous jihadis on the face of this earth. You know, there's a difference between the two, and rarely do we ever hear about the peace side. We always hear about the need for more kind of death, as death merchants essentially control a big portion of the corporate media. And that's why independent media has always been very fiercely anti-war, just like we have been for over 20 plus years, as we've been protesting the war in Iraq before that war even particularly started. And if you like what we're doing, you could support us just by simply signing up to LukeUnfiltered.com. Now, there's a lot of really amazing offers of value that you get for signing up, not just 6+ original videos just for members, but we're doing something very special this week, as this Saturday, 1 p.m. Eastern, we're doing a range day with me. I was able to find one of the most amazing pistol instructors in, I think, all of Florida, if not the United States. Of a bigger influence from get crazier, we could expect a lot more of a bigger influence from radical jihadism after this fall of Syria, which of course is a threat against Western nations and governments all throughout this world. As again, the future of Syria is still unknown, but like we have seen in Iraq, like we have seen in Libya, right after a government collapses, there is a vacuum of power. There are different groups vowing for power, just like whenever a cartel leader gets taken out, there's usually factions. Those factions usually fight for power. That conflict usually sparks major issues and problems for, of course, the local communities of that particular region. And that's probably what's going to be happening right now inside of Syria, as we could expect probably another refugee crisis. We could expect massive sectarian violence. We could expect massive instability in the region. As a lot of people are saying, should America be involved here? Well, I would argue that they already have been involved here, as Donald Trump 11 plus years ago literally wrote, remember, all those freedom fighters in Syria want to fly planes into our buildings. As Donald Trump has announced on Truth Social that the United States should stay out of this fighting, when in reality, the intelligence agencies probably already played a major key role. As you look at some of the more kind of advanced tactics that these rebel groups used, along with whole kind of drone divisions, as well as their larger kind of coordination, as well as their kind of military formations, this all directly speaks to the same kind of techniques, same kind of principles and policies that the Ukrainian American intel agency influenced divisions are also specifically utilizing right now in the theater of war inside of Ukraine. As Trump has declared, a little bit too late in my opinion, that the United States should stay out of this, as the United States already probably played a major role with this larger destruction of the Syrian state, along with the Israeli and Turkish government. As Donald Trump just a couple of moments ago
all right, so there is a long history of the United States, and when I say United States, I really mean the Anglo-American establishment, not the British people, not the American people, but there's a coterie of globalists that have kind of deep-stated both countries, if you will, to say the least, and they have a history of working with terrorists, and, you know, they're called freedom fighters, rebels, peace fighters at the beginning. Saddam Hussein was one of these people. Gaddafi was one of these people. This guy right here, this guy, anti-Soviet warrior, puts his army on the road to peace, is a famous piece of American history. If you're listening on audio only, it's a much younger Osama bin Laden in this independent article. The Saudi businessman who recruited Mujahideen now uses them for large-scale building projects in Sudan. Right? So before he was public enemy number one, he was a useful, character on their stage, overthrowing and fighting, using as a proxy to fight with the Soviets. That's what Syria is. That's what Ukraine is. Proxies so that we can tangle with the former Soviet Union. So anyway,
it's kind of like the intro to Dave Smith's podcast, Part of the Problem, where he has that little soundbite where he's like, if you want to know who America is going to be fighting in 10 years, just look to who they're funding right now.
Yeah. It's very true. It's very true. Look at all that gear they left behind in Afghanistan. You don't think they're going to go back and fight with that at some point, or maybe they'll just let them all have it forever. All that opium that they just shut down, right? Because prior to the American invasion, there was the opium cutoff. And as soon as America pulled out, the opium was cut off again. It seemed to only run like that when the Americans and British were running it. And that's like a 200-year case study. You could look at those numbers. But, so they are not content with just having Israel poking the bear. They're not content with Ukraine poking Russia. They need to have this whole thing topple in Syria. They've been working on it for a long time. They're happy to see it happening right now. It takes the heat off of some of the other things they're doing. Like Israel's just able to roll in without military resistance. They've been, throwing stuff back and forth with Syria for a long time. All of a sudden, it's very convenient. It's like a whole stand down of the whole military system on the other side. So there's more to be learned from that. But we have to address a story that we had covered last week about the Rothchild fire in the Beverly Hills area. So that'll be the second story in this block. The first story is commemorative to John Lennon, who was assassinated 44 years ago today by, in my opinion, it was the doorman at the Dakota Hotel who used to be a former assassin for Operation 40 and Operation Mongoose in the CIA, which goes back to the use of these types of proxies in American history. So I don't know why they can't find the United CEO gunman, but maybe he was also someone who just looks like he's an American. Maybe he's from an allied country, and that's why you can't find him in your little system, right? Maybe he came over on a boat, got on a bus, did his thing, went on a bus, got on a boat, back out of here. I don't know, but I do know that average people can't really evade the federal government so easily for a week and make so many mistakes. Leave DNA behind, leave your phone behind, leave your backpack behind, take a city bike that's all registered, and you got all these cameras and stuff like that. There were ways to do the same thing, and it doesn't get caught on camera at all. So your questions you should be asking is, why did they decide to show you that they kill CEOs now as opposed to in the past? This is something you see in other countries in the past. They kill people like that all the time. It's a known. But in this country, it's always like, oh, they had an accident, or they slipped and fell, or they drowned in the bathtub. When there's a big lawsuit and they get rid of witnesses, like we just saw them flip that boat a couple weeks ago, that yacht from the guy that was a billionaire, right? From overseas, the HP company. And then his lawyer died, and the other co-defendant got hit by the car while he was running, all within the same week. Like, we have seen things like this on the Richter scale kind of recently, but this one's of a different order of magnitude. Because there was a water funnel, there was like other acts of God in this one is like pow, pow, pow. And then they can't even identify the armament. Did this guy have some homemade stuff? Was it a veterinary gun? Did he have something he didn't know how to work? All these types of things. We have to get into that evidence later tonight. But we're going to have we have an interview with the doctor who worked on John Lennon when he came into the ER, which I thought was, I had not heard of this gentleman before, and I have done research into this topic and his assassination. So this was news to me. He recently, in the last couple of years, changed his opinion on whether the shots came from the front of the body or the back of the body. So for the first 30 years, this doctor thought John Lennon was shot from the front because Mark David Chapman was in front, and the doorman, Jose, was behind him. And so, looking at the evidence that he never got to see the autopsy or what have you, he was only there in the ER. He has changed his opinion. So that's also interesting. So let's go to, this is News Nation. Doctor who tried to save John Lennon's life speaks out on the death. And then we have Rothschild mystery identity unravels after man in Hollywood dies in the flames. So let's check it out.
The surgical resident who tried everything he could to save Lennon was Dr. David Halloran. Dr. Halloran is now a very experienced surgeon practicing in Syracuse, New York. He's also my special guest tonight as we count down to the anniversary of Lennon's murder this Sunday. Doctor, thank you so much for being on the program. I have always wondered what it was like to be you. Can you take me back to that night and to everything that you experienced as you remember?
Well, I don't wish anybody was me, and thank you for that. But yes, it was 44 years ago this Sunday. And just to set the scene, it was about 10:30 at night. I was in the hospital, just rounding or seeing a consult, and I get an overhead page stat to the ER. Now, that's a little unusual since we all had beepers in those days, and usually you get beeped and you call the operator and they tell you what to do. So I go running down to the ER and I go, "What's going on?" And they go, "We have a gunshot wound to the chest coming in." Didn't say who it was, just a gunshot wound to the chest. So I said, "Okay, we'll go to room 115, which is the trauma bay. Got the open thoracotomy tray out of the closet, which is a tray with all the instruments you would need for opening up a chest if need be." And we waited. We waited for several minutes. And then the other unusual thing was that there was no ambulance that came into the ambulance courtyard. It was a police car. They took him out of the back of the seat of the police car, put him on a stretcher and a gurney, and wheeled him into 115. Now, I remember he was wearing blue jeans. He had that iconic leather jacket on with a fur collar. Didn't know who it was. We weren't told who it was. And it's sort of like a rugby scrum. A lot of us descended on him at one time. I'm the senior resident on the scene, cut off the clothes, then just crack his chest. It was obvious that he had several gunshot wounds over his left chest, open his chest, looking for something that's salvageable. His heart was intact, but empty, and he had a lot of blood and clots in his chest. And we started working on him. We pumped his heart. People are starting IVs. Someone put a tube in to breathe for him. All this is going on. And we're into it about maybe 15 minutes before someone says, "Hey, that looks like John Lennon." And I said, "Nah, it can't be John Lennon." They said, "No, it looks like John Lennon." And then they're going through his belongings, and there's his wallet, there's his ID. I remember seeing his gold American Express card, John Lennon on it. He also had a packet of films, of pictures of white rolls in the background with Sean and Yoko and himself. And it became obvious this was John Lennon. I had my "oh my God" moment, and we continued. Now, in the meantime...
Well, you know what? Can I stop you there? I want to ask you about the "oh my God" moment, because I've been wondering when you found out that it was John, like, was it in the middle of what you were doing? And it sounds like it was. Does that change anything? Does it change the metric? Does it change the pressure? Does it change the emotion in the room?
Well, it changed the emotion in the room. It got... Well, it's always serious, but this was, at least for me, a lot more pressure. But we had our moment and just continued on. Now, once this was known, they called in the senior attending, Dr. Lynn, to come in. Also, Dr. Richard Marks, who was a surgeon on staff, lived in the area, was walking home and saw Yoko being put in the back of a police car, followed them in. So Dick Marks, he came in, and when we're having this debate of no, it's not, no, it is, yes, it is, no, it isn't, he comes in and goes, "That is John Lennon." And that's when it got pretty quiet and somber. And we worked on him for half hour, 45 minutes. We never got a pulse back and never had a response back. And after around 11:15, we called it and pronounced him dead.
So I've only got a couple seconds left, but I'm very curious about this. My producer, who was speaking with you earlier, told me something I couldn't believe, that only recently you read the autopsy report and saw that he was shot from the back. But the hollow point bullets that his killer used were so destructive, you thought he was shot from the front?
I thought he was shot from the front, and I believed that until about a few years ago, when actually it was a British news service that interviewed me that actually had gotten a copy of the ME's report, Dr. Elliot Gross's report. And according to the autopsy, he was shot from the back. Now, you could argue that There was one that was sort of on the side. It could have been either or. And at the time, we didn't have the luxury of doing an autopsy. We were trying to save him at the time. But that was my impression for many years.
Thanks for watching. Go to joinnn.com to find.
But we begin with surprising new revelations about the man with the famous name who died in a mysterious Hollywood Hills house fire late last month. Neighbors believed he was a member of the Rothschild banking family and possibly a billionaire. But tonight, we've learned a lot more about the true identity of William de Rothschild and the hidden life he led for more than 40 years. Eyewitness News reporter Jory Rand joining us live now on the Hollywood Hills with those new revelations tonight. Jory.
That's right, Mark. The man who lived and died in this Laurel Canyon home was known to neighbors simply as Will Rothchild. They believed he was part of that famous family, but it turns out he was not, and his name originally was not Rothschild at all. It was Kaufman, and tonight we caught up with a family member in Oregon who had no idea he had been living here these last 40 years. 1 week after this Hollywood Hills home caught fire and a man known to neighbors as Will Rothchild, a billionaire member of the famed Rothschild family, was found dead inside, the picture of who this man really was is beginning to come into focus. It turns out 87-year-old William de Rothschild used to be William Kaufman of Oregon. The LA Times reporting he changed his name in the 80s. Hi, is this Richard?
It is.
Hi, Richard. Sorry to bother you. This is Jory Rand calling from ABC7 in Los Angeles. Tonight, we reached out to Richard Kaufman, brother to William de Rothschild, who had no idea his brother was even alive.
I thought he had passed away 40 years ago. The last contact I had with him was a telephone call that was kind of odd. It seemed like he had something to tell me. Didn't, and when I never heard from him again, I kind of presumed that maybe he had an illness, didn't want to talk about it, and just quietly passed away.
He hadn't, and had been quietly living in Laurel Canyon, somehow living like a billionaire with multiple properties and dozens of luxury vehicles on elevators inside his garage.
Those I saw with my own eyes, so they're there.
So where did the money come from?
Your guess is as good as mine.
His brother was equally baffled.
But I don't know how he made his money.
And neither friend nor family really knew who this person, who had lived as William Kaufman and Will de Rothschild, really was.
I was trying to decide whether I should be sad about this, but in reality, I'm somewhat happy about it, that he had a life, even though it might have been somewhat bizarre. That he lived a long life, did not pass away in his 40s.
He was a kind, gentle soul, and as far as he goes, there's no deception on his part. Absolutely not. He's nice to everyone. He never had a bad word to say about anyone, and was a good neighbor. I consider him a good friend, and I'm really sorry that he's gone.
So it was really important to neighbors here to let everyone know that Will was not posing as a member of the famous family. He never said that he was, but the lifestyle and the name could have led people to use their imagination to connect the dots, but he certainly had that lifestyle. As to where the money came from, so we had an inkling when we came here a week ago, and the Hummer parked in the driveway was registered to a Margot Merkin. She is the heiress to the budget rent-a-car fortune. She lives in the home up the street. The LA Times reporting that the two are married, though to neighbors here, they just assumed she was a cousin who he would go and visit. He lived here in this much smaller, rundown house. There is a much larger, much fancier home up the hill. They both apparently belong to Merkin. That could be where the money came from, but again, we're waiting to figure that out. We're also waiting to hear from the coroner for official cause of death.
All right, so now we know that was much ado about nothing, and that I think that guy probably, if I had to hypothesize, which I don't like to do, but he came into a large amount of money and didn't want anybody to know about it. That's why his family thought he was dead for 40 years, and he went and assumed the name of Rothschild, a name with which no one questions how you got your money, because you're not allowed to talk about it. So it seems like, I mean, because the guy did have cash, that his family just doesn't know where he got it. Which is not usually like he ran a business and did it honestly. It's like he needed to go change his identity and blend in and start a new life for him that people only unraveled after he was found dead in his house. But if we go back to that John Lennon clip, that's interesting for a number of reasons because, the police taking him to the hospital, that was awfully kind of them. Do the police pick up injured people all the time and take them to hospitals? I don't think they do. Maybe they did it because he was a celebrity and they couldn't wait for the ambulance. But if you heard the doctor, John Lennon didn't have a pulse when he came into the hospital. If you had some people who were not friendly to John Lennon, I don't know, like the British Empire, like the CIA, like maybe some New York City cops, they might not have wanted him to continue being alive and made sure that he did not have a chance to be alive once at the hospital. So there's a little interesting history behind this. I had to go through some trouble to look some of this up because the internet, they be censoring out there. So let's go over here and let's take a look at this. John Lennon refused his knighthood. About 10, 11 years before his death, he poked his finger in the Queen's chest. And the British Empire doesn't forget very easily. So I would think that they, they take note of people who return their honorariums, right? It's the British Empire saying, we would like to use you as our marketing. And he said, fuck off, in so many words. I'm sure he used the Queen's English. John Lennon, a member of the British rock band The Beatles, refused a knighthood from the Queen Elizabeth II in 1969. The reason for his refusal was his strong anti-establishment views and his opposition to British foreign policy, particularly in the country's involvement in the Biafran War in Nigeria and its support for the U.S. war in Vietnam. In November 1969, Lennon returned his Member of the British Empire MBE award, which he had received in 1965 along with his fellow Beatles, to Buckingham Palace. In a letter accompanying the return medal, he wrote, I am returning my MBE as a protest against Britain's involvement in the Nigeria Biafra thing, against our support of America and Vietnam, and against cold turkey slipping down the charts. He also signed the letter with love, John Lennon, and included his business address, Bag Productions, on the notepaper. Lennon's decision to refuse the knighthood and return his MBE was a bold statement against the British establishment and its values. It reflected his growing disillusionment with the British government and his commitment to using his platform to speak out against war and social injustice. I don't think the deep state will be a big fan of that. So enter into the picture a character named Jose Sangenis Perdomo. Now, before we open Wikispooks, I guess we just open Wikispooks and see. Let's read a little bit about Jose. Because I did go searching for an article and I could not find it on Brave browser and DuckDuckGo. I actually had to go to the Google. And I do believe I have found, no, this is not it. I was looking for the one from Jerry Mazza from like 2008 it was. I'll still have to look for it. Let's see if we can get one of these to open. No? Wikispooks, they don't want to do that right now. How about, I'll find it then, because I thought I had it. I thought I had what I needed for the deep dive. I don't, because Wikispooks will not load the page. And the other one is not the article I was looking for. But the gist, I'll foreshadow it, and then I'll have to continue it after next media block. The gist is this. This character, who's connected to Felix Rodriguez, a.k.a. Max Gomez, and CIA Operation 40, as well as Operation Zapata and some other cool stuff like the JFK assassination, he is the doorman at John Lennon's apartment building, who just happens to be there when the man gets shot by the guy who read Catcher in the Rye too many times, apparently, allegedly, Mark David Chapman. So there is something to learn, but we have to wait till the next media block to get to that, because the internet is dead, apparently. We have to try to revive it. Hopefully it goes better than when they revived John Lennon. All right, now.
You know, it kind of reminds me, too, of like the story of the alleged, where Martin Luther King, where he was shot, taken to the hospital, and then there's all the curiosity and speculation about whether or not he was actually killed in the hospital. Like, there, you've heard that, right? So like they sent people in, and all the rumors, and people overheard certain people saying things like and basically just killing him in the hospital. So
these are rumors and legends around such events. There's also, allegedly it was okay to kill Patton because he was anti-Semitic. So they have, there's a lot of things out there that aren't what people were told. If you go to the Patton Museum, you can see his Cadillac that he crashed and died in, except that's not the Cadillac he crashed and died in, which makes me think, why would you have to fake such things if that's not really the car? Don't say it's the car. Don't, give us the gist. But America is not ready for such truths yet. I think that's what's going on.
Getting there, though.
Yeah, we are. They're getting ready for the COVID conspiracy truth, because a lot of people, they put on a lot of resistance. They did a lot of simping for the government, and they're like, Fauci's he's a entity worthy of being worshipped right alongside Jesus with some candles, and pray to Fauci, he's going to save you type thing. He's also the same person that said you could get AIDS from cornflakes back in the day, and all sorts of good things like that. So I'm thinking, especially with all this news breaking out, that they're going to have to pardon Fauci to protect him against Trump's revenge. That's what they're saying. It's like, no, they're just pardoning the people who were guilty of crimes, not because they're scared Trump's going to come after them for revenge or something. It's like they had to do something first to come out. Like the whole storyline of the preventative pardons, we'll find out later is going to be bullshit. But I just wanted to let you know that now we need to see that every conspiracy about COVID was basically now proven out by facts in the Congress. We have two stories. One comes from Jimmy Dore, one comes from Viva Frei. They're the same coverage, same story, different coverage. So we'll try to mix and match, and then we'll go to the next block and we'll shift stories, because we have to see Scott go to Pfizer and Merck et al. And serve them up. But let's first check in on the people who were so kind to us during the pandemic.
And go to jimmydore.com for a link for tickets, and only jimmydore.com. So guess what? The House COVID-19 panel releases their final report on COVID-19, and they criticize public health response to the pandemic. You don't say.
Did they excoriate it? Would you say it went that far?
Did they excoriate? So I know what you're wondering. Does that mean that they did we pointlessly destroy lives and businesses with an iron fist, or does that mean they were cracking down hard enough on us? It could go either way.
Yeah.
Was it they were destroying lives and businesses, or they weren't cracking down hard enough? I wonder what the answer is going to be. I wonder how this COVID report's going to turn out.
Wait, are they going to say not enough? Is that really how it could turn out? Well, I'm asking for real.
No, this is a joke I'm telling.
Oh, God.
A Republican-led House committee investigating broad aspects of the COVID-19 pandemic and its effects in the U.S. released a final report Monday, summarizing its 2-year effort, saying it hoped the work would serve as a roadmap for Congress, the executive branch, and the private sector to prepare for a respond to future. So the Republican-led House committee. So it's Republican, so that means the girls at The View don't have to accept it. And when I say girls, I mean grown ladies. I meant to say
neither do I.
I meant to say gals. I meant to say gals.
I don't accept it either, Jimmy. We should only have one party. To save democracy, we should have one party.
Yeah, just one, like China.
Yeah.
So maybe what they need is a good old roadmap. So this is a good old-fashioned roadmap, because the last circular clusterfuck came off like they were using Waze. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah.
And everybody knows that here we go. It's a 520-page report, Kurt. The House Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic concludes that the coronavirus most likely emerged from a laboratory in Wuhan, China. Well, you don't say. Sounds far-fetched.
Yeah, a little bit. 520 pages to say that nonsense?
Are they sure that the people in China weren't eating bats at a wet market? Are you sure? Oh, come on.
Have I been not eating bat because I thought that causes COVID and you've robbed me of that?
Are you sure we're talking about Wuhan, China, and not Wu Quain? Are we talking about Ukraine? So it goes on. It goes on. It says, citing factors like biological characteristics of the virus and illnesses among researchers at the Wuhan Institute of Virology in the fall of 2019. The report is also critical of common COVID mitigation measures. Social distancing and mask mandates were not based on science. Hard science, but soft science.
Limp
science. Flaccid science. And prolonged lockdowns caused immeasurable harm to not only the American economy, but also to the mental and physical health of Americans, with a particularly negative effect on younger citizens.
We've seen Taylor Lorenz. You can measure it.
So basically, every conspiracy theory you thought about COVID is they're validating.
But for the wrong reasons.
Yes. So I love how these reports, they understate the actual effect. The latest research reveals drowning severely reduces that a person's ability to contribute to society.
Oh, that's what I bemoan the most is all the people, what they could have contributed. So that's all you're useful for is what you contribute to the system.
Experts have said that such mitigation recommendations were sometimes based on research into other respiratory viruses because of a lack of knowledge about the coronavirus, and that guidelines may shift as scientific knowledge develops.
Which experts?
Yank. However, the report applauds travel restrictions instituted by the Trump administration early, yank, saying that they helped save lives and were unjustly criticized as xenophobia. No, we know now that the virus wasn't anywhere deadly like they said it was. In fact, Bill Gates said it was just like the flu, a little different. But it had a low fatality rate. How low? Less than 0.5%. So if you got COVID, you had a 99.5% chance of surviving. And the people who died were old with comorbidities, just like the flu, but a little different.
As the great Bill Gates, the billionaire we like,
the great Bill Gates said. So they're still lying for Trump. That's what they're doing. They're lying. That's what's called lying for Trump. Unbelievable.
Well, do you remember the travel restrictions and all that at the time? It was racist to even say COVID was a problem.
Yes.
I remember this abrupt switch where all of a sudden everybody who was...
Nancy Pelosi was in Chinatown saying, come to Chinatown.
Yeah,
don't worry
get
about
some
it.
Bat.
Yeah.
We're saving some bat on the Barbie for you.
The administration, the administration is also lauded for Operation Warp Speed, the effort to quickly develop the COVID-19 vaccine, which the report calls an incredible feat of science that saved millions. Hey, we all know that the best and safest way to develop an experimental drug is at warp speed.
Yeah. And by the way, even if that were true, Pfizer didn't want to be part of warp speed because they didn't want all the oversight of warp speed.
Warp speed.
Which is none.
The report notes that the operation even received praise from Dr. Anthony Fauci, former director of the NIA, and a frequent target of the subcommittee. Oh, really? Okay.
I hate these people so much.
But the report, this is CNN Health, but the report also, and I hate them too. And that health officials and the Biden administration oversold the power of the vaccines to prevent transmission or infection, possibly contributing to the public's lack of trust in COVID shots and in vaccines overall. You think the fact that they lied about them repeatedly?
Who wrote this? Sanjay Gupta?
Contributed to the public's lack of trust in them? You think?
A stochastic loss of trust.
The report also accuses public health officials of taking part in a coordinated effort to ignore natural immunity and suppress dissenting opinion.
That's ridiculous.
Don't let that statement roll past, because this is one of the biggest crimes of the millennium.
Nothing burger, I say.
Coordinated effort to ignore natural immunity. You know why they did that? To make people who had natural immunity also get the vaccine that they didn't need because they had natural immunity.
Because then people would find out you don't die from COVID, really.
Bombshell report. You know, if by bombshell you mean shit we already knew unless you were shit lib crazy, I guess it's a bombshell. I guess that means it's a bombshell.
That woman could bake with her gay son this whole time?
So here's what they say. The House subcommittee, the key takeaways, that the lab-related incident in Wuhan involving gain of function is most likely the source of the virus. U.S. taxpayer money funneled through EcoHealth Alliance allegedly funded the dangerous research, and that Fauci lied about it. They didn't conclude that, did they? That Fauci lied to Congress about the funding of gain of function research. They didn't put that in there.
Well, I say he's an adjudicated gain of function research criminal. Adjudicated, Jimmy.
Yeah.
Adjudicated.
And they can blame China for it. So COVID-19, the virus possesses a biological characteristic that is not found in nature. No shit.
I thought that was crazy.
Data shows that COVID-19 cases stem from a single introduction into humans. This runs contrary to previous pandemics where there were multiple spillover events. Wuhan is home to China's foremost SARS research lab, which has a history of conducting gain-of-function research at inadequate biosafety levels.
And we still work with them to make more fucking viruses. Is that in the report?
Jesus Christ.
Don't worry, we're back at that lab. I don't know how the speed of science works. It's certainly not warp speed because I knew about this 6 months ago. We're back making viruses at Wuhan. America is.
And the researchers who worked at that Wuhan lab were sick with COVID-like virus in the fall of 2019, months before COVID-19 was discovered at the wet markets. And by nearly all measures of science, if there was evidence of natural origin, it would have already surfaced.
Yeah, well...
Who wrote this, John? Go ahead.
If there's any consolation, we're doing the same research in Raleigh, North Carolina.
That's
so
right.
Next time.
Also, vaccines. Contrary to the early promises, COVID-19 vaccines did not fully stop virus transmission. Man, in fact, everybody who got the vaccine also got COVID.
Nobody promised that. You're making things up.
I know. Mandates, however, still upend lives and livelihoods, creating widespread frustration and backlash. Economic disaster. The pandemic caused 160,000 business closures, but that means permanent. That doesn't mean they just closed during the lockdowns. That means that they were shuttered forever, with 60% of them, 60% of these permanent. So what's 60% of 160? Do you know 41% of all black-owned businesses shut down permanently?
We don't want them being independent.
Cornel West did not know that. I had to let him in on that.
Why would he know about business? He's a jerk-off who works at a college.
I know. Why would he know about business?
The most unqualified people on the planet.
160,000. So 96,000 businesses closed permanently.
Yeah.
96,000.
Cornel West is half a man.
What's that?
He's half a man. He's like a punk college kid for his whole life.
Where's the part where DARPA and the DOD were in on this? Is that coming? Probably not.
That's strange.
Right? No?
Now, I would like to hear from thought leader Destiny on this one, because I know he doesn't buy into this stuff, and he was vaccinated in his mouth by Nick Fuentes. He got his booster, too.
Prolonged closures were unjustified. School closures. Prolonged closures were unjustified by science. Any closure was unjustified by science, leading to historic learning loss. Historic learning loss.
Well,
higher mental health issues and declining physical well-being for kids. Federal and state government were unprepared to manage relief funds or coordinate their COVID response. The Biden administration allegedly obstructed investigations with key officials like Dr. Fauci's advisor, accused of policy violations and misleading Congress. That's what they concluded.
Wow. Boy, Republicans are the best.
Tom Wren says, one of the first things to see is the claim that the vaccines were largely safe and effective. That's what it says in this stupid report.
Oh,
the shocking thing about this is that the rest of this section provides absolutely zero evidence of the safety or efficacy of those vaccines. Instead, it talks about the failed safety and efficacy surveillance systems.
Oh, we got to work on that right now.
Essentially, the committee said we have no real evidence of safety or efficacy, but they must be safe.
Yeah.
Further, they admit that the FDA is trying to block access to government data about the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. This section is absolute whitewash and gift to the big pharma killers behind mRNA. Pfizer and Moderna's lobbying money has been well spent.
It's the wisdom of Solomon, Jimmy. They cut this baby in half.
So let me just say that the vaccine did save oh my God, it was fantastic. So I have to disagree with this Tom Rentz guy.
Mm-hmm.
They did not whitewash the mRNA, Pfizer and Moderna No, they're not killers. Those vaccines save lives.
If only they could vaccinate for climate change, the thing that killed so many people with myocarditis.
The FDA and the CDC say the vaccines save lives, so that's what I have to go with at this show. I can't go against the FDA or the CDC. They'll take my channel down. But here, is from the report. COVID-19, while largely safe and effective, it had adverse events that must be thoroughly investigated.
At least drop effective, seeing as how I got fucking COVID after I got the vaccine. Surely you can't still say effective. You could say safe if you want to be a piece of shit.
No, it's safe and effective, Kurt. That's what the FDA, the CDC, and this committee found.
Yeah, they mean self-killing an elderly population because, much like China, we have too many people, and the lizards who run the world want to thin the herd out, as we know from the Georgia Guidestones.
So just so you know that when the swine flu in the 1976, 1 in 100,000 people who got the vaccine had an adverse event. The COVID vaccine, 1 in 800.
Wow.
And they say it's safe and effective, and they're still recommending it.
Hey, we should run this flagpole up the flagpole past the Freemasons and straight to the Rosicrucians.
The swine flu vaccine, 1 in 100,000 people who got the vaccine had an adverse event. They pulled it. COVID-19, 1 in 800. They're still recommending it, and they're still saying it's safe and effective. And some people say that has to do with the fact that all those politicians who wrote this are being paid by big pharma. That's some people say that.
It's a joke. It's almost like this is a fucking joke, and you're an idiot if you believe in it. That's what it almost sounds like.
It's almost like that, but I have to go with what the FDA and the CDC say, Kurt. And they say it's safe and effective, and it's fantastic, and everybody should get their booster. Come see us doing live shows. We'll be in Los Angeles, Honolulu, Baltimore.
Party peoples of the interwebs, virtually everything they once called a conspiracy theory,
they literally now just confirmed as reality.
Viva Frei, former Montreal litigator turned current Florida rumbler, in my home office, and I now have two former friends, WZ and MS. If you're watching this,
go suck a lemon. I told you so.
All right, jokes aside, although that really wasn't a joke, I freaking told you so. There was recently a report published by the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic, a bipartisan committee that came to certain conclusions, all of which, or at the very least, virtually all of which, confirm that which was once called a conspiracy theory. The report is a whopping and daunting 500 plus pages. It's sort of the throw a bunch of crap at the wall and hope nobody notices, make it so bloody complicated, inaccessible, that hopefully people won't access it. I got an executive summary. I went through cherry picking certain sections just to confirm what I already knew, but you go through the introduction, you go through the executive summary, it literally outlines bullet by bullet that which was once called a conspiracy theory is now being confirmed reality. Congress of the United States House of Representatives Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic. Dear colleague, it has been my distinct pleasure to lead the Select Subcommittee on the Coronavirus Pandemic for the 118th Congress. I was honored to be entrusted with a great responsibility to investigate a once-in-a-100-year pandemic and to prepare America for next time. And there will be a next time. This is a responsibility I took very seriously, and I believe that seriousness and teamwork has translated to much success. Oh yes, they looked into the so-called coronavirus pandemic, and holy crab apples, when we get to the findings, it's going to blow your freaking mind, in that it's not going to blow your freaking mind, because anybody who's been paying attention is going to say, yeah, I knew this from the very beginning. How are you now only catching up with this 4 years later? But first, who authored this subcommittee report? This whopping massive report, or at the very least, who headed this subcommittee? His name is Brad Wenstrup. Brad Robert Wenstrup, born June 17, 1958, is an American politician, U.S. Army Reserve officer, and doctor of pediatric medicine, who has been the U.S. representative for Ohio's 2nd Congressional District since 2013. A Republican, he upset incumbent U.S. Representative Gene Schmidt to win the 2012 Republican primary election. In November 2023, he announced he would not seek re-election in 2024. Why is it important to highlight his credentials? So that you naysaying idiots out there can't get away with telling yourselves, oh, he's not a doctor. Oh, he is a doctor. Oh, but he's not a virologist. Oh, too freaking bad. This guy's got more medical training than you, so take his conclusions seriously. In 1976, Wenstrup graduated from St. Xavier High School in Cincinnati. In 1980, he graduated Omicron Delta Kappa and cum laude with a BA in psychology from the University of Cincinnati, where he was a member of the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity. He then attended the Skoll College of Pediatric Medicine of Rosalind Franklin University of Medicine and Science, where he earned a BS in biology and a Doctor of Pediatric Medicine degree, graduating in 1985. Bottom line, he's got credentials. Bottom line, they've confirmed what a great many people were saying from the beginning, and if you had any doubts, I remind you now of the Great Barrington Declaration. And now back to the conclusions of this select subcommittee on the coronavirus pandemic. 5 years ago, on December 1, 2019, was what would eventually be the first confirmed case of COVID-19. After that, a pandemic devastated the world at nearly never-before-seen proportions, leaving millions dead and millions more concerned about long-term consequences. COVID-19 was novel. The brightest scientists and medical experts were learning on the job to determine how to treat both the underlying disease and the second-order side effects. Since February 2023, the Select Subcommittee sought to produce a full after-action report to provide a roadmap of how we, in Congress, the executive, and the private sector may better prepare for and respond to future pandemics. Throughout this process, the Select Subcommittee sent more than 100 investigative letters, conducted 38 transcribed interviews or depositions, held 25 hearings or meetings, and reviewed more than 1 million pages of documents from dozens of custodians. This work looks back on many events, comments, guidances, and other actions to look forward. This is the single most thorough review of the pandemic conducted to date. For the purposes of this vlog, we're only going to go over the executive summary findings, which is going to be enough because I'm going to give you my commentary on a one-by-one basis. You can go read the entirety of the report if you so choose, or certain sections. The link is going to be somewhere in the description. But let's just get to the findings, all of which anyone who is paying attention is going to say,
yeah, this is nothing new.
It's nothing new, except it confirms the fact that, yes, it was the government that was the #1 purveyor of disinformation and misinformation out there, calling conspiracy theory that which they are now acknowledging as a matter of fact. Most of you know me. You know I strive to work collegially with our fellow Americans to provide results for all of us. This is the same mentality I brought to my work as chairman of the Select Subcommittee. During a time of intense partisanship, the Select Subcommittee had bipartisan consensus across multiple topics. Bipartisan consensus across multiple topics, many of which you're going to say, hey, they had bipartisan consensus about 3 years ago that this was all crazy conspiracy theory. They called people conspiracy theorists, anti-vaxxers, had them deplatformed, censored, suppressed, defamed for what they are now acknowledging was in fact true from the very beginning. But they didn't know from the very beginning, although a great many people did, so why they didn't is the question to be asked. But yeah, wait until we get into this top 10 of I freaking told you so. 1. The possibility that COVID-19 emerged because of a laboratory or research-related accident is not a conspiracy theory. Oh really? So when The Lancet was saying it's a conspiracy theory, and when a New York Times journalist was saying it's a racist conspiracy theory at that to suggest that this originated from a Chinese lab in Wuhan, China, now it's not a conspiracy theory because it's basically been confirmed as a matter of fact? You're going to notice a theme throughout this vlog.
Hashtag Nuremberg 2.0.
And don't worry, this Chinese connection comes up multiple times in this bipartisan consensus executive summary. 2, EcoHealth Alliance, Inc. and Dr. Peter Daszak should never again receive U.S. taxpayer dollars. 3, scientific messaging must be clear and concise, backed by evidentiary support, and come from trusted messengers, such as frontline doctors treating patients. In other words, it doesn't come from the Faucis of the world dictating to pharmacies what prescriptions they can and cannot fill, what medications frontline doctors can and cannot prescribe to their patients. In other words, it confirms what Trump was saying, that hydroxychloroquine and ivermectin were totally legitimate drugs to be prescribing, but lo and behold, the order came from the top down and not from the practicing doctors bottom up. The bottom line conclusion, the independent practice of medicine was co-opted by the government that was issuing the directives, not the doctors themselves. More simply put, the censorship and the government action actually killed people. Do not ever forget that.
Nuremberg 2.0.
4, public health officials must work to regain America's trust. Americans want to be educated, not indoctrinated. Translation, the government was issuing propaganda to coerce Americans by hook and by crook into certain actions that was actually not supported by the science. That's what they're saying in more polite terms. Nuremberg 2.0, but let's go to item number 5, and the survey says, former New York Governor Andrew Cuomo participated in medical malpractice and publicly covered up the total number of nursing home fatalities in New York. Translation, Cuomo killed people when he implemented the policy of nursing homes being required to take back in COVID-19 positive patients after having immunized the executives of the nursing homes. In other words, Cuomo killed people and then covered up the fact that he killed people. And you know what the biggest problem is? He's not alone. Gretchen Whitmer, you should be on that list. I suspect you're not, because you might be one of the Democrats' 2028 political candidates. In addition to these notable bipartisan successes, the Select Subcommittee developed extensive findings, some of which include 1. The U.S. National Institutes of Health funded gain-of-function research at the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Translation, Fauci lied lied to Congress. Fauci lied, people died. Translation, it was true from the beginning, but they denied it from the beginning. Nuremberg 2.0, but it doesn't stop there. Let's go back to China. 2. The Chinese government, agencies within the U.S. government, and some members of the international scientific community sought to cover up facts concerning the origins of the pandemic. Holy sweet merciful hell, does everybody understand what is being admitted to here? On a bipartisan basis, the Chinese government participated in covering up the origins of the virus, which originated in a lab in Wuhan, China, or at the very least, it's no longer a conspiracy theory to assert that, and members of government agencies in America did so as well, and members of the international community who we still rely on for guidance. This is absolutely outrageous, and I hope people understand that. It's one thing to say, I told you so, and it's one thing to say this is exactly what the people who knew better were saying from the very beginning, but they are actually admitting criminality, in my humble opinion. But it gets even better as relates to Operation Warp Speed, because I've said this multiple times. If Trump has one blind spot, it's that he wants to claim that Operation Warp Speed was a whopping success, when I humbly disagree. But wait until you hear what they admit in the context of praising Operation Warp Speed. 3. Operation Warp Speed was a tremendous success and a model to build upon in the future. The vaccines, which are now probably better characterized as therapeutics, undoubtedly saved millions of lives by diminishing likelihood of severe disease and death. Mother effer, I am trying not to swear, but I'm old enough to remember when people who suggested that the so-called vaccine was in fact at best a therapeutic were called anti-vaxxers. I remember that because I was part of that debate. I was part of that public outcry, and when Dr. Kieran Moore out of Ontario finally admitted by slip of the tongue that it's a, quote, therapeutic, I jumped on that and put that on blast, and we were still called anti-vaxxers for trying to force the world to acknowledge what they are now admitting, that that jab was at best a therapeutic, and according to many, a therapeutic that does a good job reducing your lifespan.
I just recommend it to everybody instead of saying it's a personal decision.
Because at present we're doing a risk-based approach.
What's the risk?
The risk, there's always a risk to having any therapeutic, to having any therapeutic versus a benefit. You want to make sure there's a very strong benefit versus the risk. If for an 18-year-old healthy individual, the risk to getting hospitalized if we have no medical illness is very, very low. We know there is a risk, a very small risk, 1 in 5,000 that may get myocarditis, for example, and you'd have to have that discussion on the risk-benefit of a complication from the vaccine versus a benefit of decreased hospitalization.
But yeah, whatever. Operation Warp Speed saved millions of lives, and I'm sure the data backs that, but who cares? It was a therapeutic, people, and the people who called it a therapeutic at the time were called crazy right-wing conspiracy theorist anti-vaxxers. And then we get into the economic fraud of all of this, which was just as rampant in Canada as it seems to have been in America. 4. Rampant fraud, waste, and abuse plagued the COVID-19 pandemic response. All right, so a bunch of us out there can say, I told you so. We all knew that there was massive fraud being perpetrated in terms of getting these subsidies, in terms of getting these loans, whatever. Money is just money. It's not loss of life or injury. Let's get back to the irreparable harm that was caused to society as a result of these wholly unscientific and purely tyrannical COVID measures. 5. Pandemic-era school closures will have enduring impact on generations of America's children, and these closures were enabled by groups meant to serve those children. Oh, so you're finally acknowledging that the lockdowns, school closures caused irreparable harm to America's children, caused by people who were supposed to be taking care of those children. But don't worry, it didn't affect Bill Gates' kids because he was sending his kids to private school.
It's pretty clear, because young people don't get sick from the disease very often, that we probably, if we knew everything we know today, we would have shut schools down a lot less than we did during this pandemic. You know, for college, going virtual tends to work awfully well. The infection levels are a little higher as you get up into that age group. But K through 12, we have a learning deficit that will take us a long time to erase that. And sadly, it's a deficit where the inner city is where it's almost 2 years. Suburban schools less, private schools in some cases, like my kids, almost no deficit at all.
You caused irreparable harm to a generation of American children, and this irreparable harm was caused by the people who were entrusted to protect those children, and you did it under the guise of protecting those children. Nuremberg 2.0, nothing less will satisfy. And it's not like anybody was saying that school closures, lockdowns would do more harm than good. You know, it's not like this little thing called the Great Barrington Declaration existed in 2020.
Go ahead, pull it.
The Great Barrington Declaration.
I just want to mention for history, the real Nazis got away from Nuremberg 1.0, So maybe you don't want to model your thing on the thing that let the real bankers get away after World War II. I don't know. Maybe it's just maybe that's just me.
Very true.
A rigged trial where all the guilty people go free is not what we're looking for as far as American public. I'm looking for accountability, justice, people to be held accountable to the facts that they lied about to millions of people, and lots of people died through that whole excursion. You know, if you rack up, what is it? You know, Stalin has that famous saying, if you kill a person, you're a murderer, but if you kill, you know, a million people, you're a figure in history. You know, that's the connotation he was leaving behind. Again, the Whitmers and the Cuomos of the world, like, they rack up enough death count. Like, that's how they're politicians. Like, they're not average, like, Dexter type characters out there doing one-offs. They know how to do it many at a time. They're much more efficient in their, what do they call that? When the government, death by government, what's that called?
Oh,
democide. Democide.
Yeah.
That's the word. That's the word. That's the COVID. COVID democide.
Absolutely.
That could be a title right there.
COVID democide.
I saw your meme, by the way, Scotty. I saw it over in the chat.
Yeah.
See? Let's see who's behind this deadly vaccine. Although I think this gives Trump too much credit.
Yes, it's just still, you know, it's tongue in cheek, and it's like, you know,
for sure.
It's like,
I just think, like, the dude come in, he's not a Washington Beltway type person, right? He comes in from the outside. He gets his first job as president. He did what the smart people around him were telling him to do. The smart people around him, by the way, were the deep state, Obama third term type people, DARPA, Moderna cutting those licenses for mRNA before Trump even got to office. So, like, they're like, oh, he's like, there's a big problem. They're like, sir, we have a solution to the problem we caused for you. Right. So, you know, I'm not giving him a pass by any means, because he should have been more responsible as a leader to be like, hey, what is this stuff and why can we do it so fast all of a sudden?
Mm-hmm. And the only reason why I don't give him a pass to this day is that he is still tweeting about it and bragging about it. So if he would have came out and at any point just says, okay, guys, I messed up, big mistake,
read the room.
I'd be like, bravo, you are absolved. That's all it would take. But
Viva also talked about the Lancet. Remember that when the Lancet came out and said anyone talks about lab leak as a conspiracy theorist, then you find out that was written by Eco Health Alliance, and it was propaganda through the Lancet. Who has the power to, like, use the Lancet as their bitch and then walk away scot-clean? Scot-free?
Exactly.
Scot-free?
Yeah, scot-free, exactly. Well, you know, and it's so, you got to really, pieces of evidence like that, it's like, okay, so who really runs who? You know, who runs the regulatory agencies? Who runs the federal government? And I would say it's Big Pharma. So, you know, when you have these
what's above Big Pharma, though?
It's even above Big Pharma. But,
yeah, there you go. Yeah.
But the clandestine, but then this meeting that happened over the weekend with the big headline, Pfizer executives, Borla and all these guys going to have dinner at Mar-a-Lago with Trump and Kennedy. I'm like, yeah, most people are looking at that from the lens of like, oh, Trump and RFK is going to put them in their place. It's like, no, you guys, Pfizer owns them, dude. Look, go do a quick search about how much money Trump got in campaign contributions in the last few election cycles, including this last one. Okay, who runs who? You know what I'm saying? The pharma people run them. That whole meeting was Pfizer walking in and being like, look, Trump, here's how it's going to be. And by the way, RFK, he says all the time, I'm not anti-vaccine. I want safe vaccines. And little Vivek, he owns a pharmaceutical company. Don't forget about what's going on, guys.
Oh yeah.
Come on.
My buddy Sully made this Albert Bourla t-shirt. I don't always smell Bortaint, but when I do, I use Improvac. Now, if you don't know what just happened right there, let me show it to you again in slow motion. Because you don't know enough about the pandemic, apparently. You haven't been watching Grand Theft World for 4 years, so I forgive you. So let's go here. This is Albert Bourla. You know how he got to be in charge of Pfizer's big vaccine and be the CEO that says, Israel, I'm going to make sure that we use you as an entire case study in this. Albert Bourla, how did he become famous? What's he famous for? He solved a problem that they had over there at Pfizer. See, Bacon needs to taste good. And male pigs and hogs, they have testosterone. And so to make the bacon taste good and not have boar taint, that's what they call it when the testosterone taints the bacon taste, boar taint. And in order to get rid of that, they have to castrate hogs. This man right here, Albert Bourla, he says, wait. I know how to chemically castrate these mammals with an injection. And the eugenics type of angle to it, they thought that rang true, that's good. So he developed Improvac for these piggies. And when you use Improvac, it chemically castrates your pigs. Brought to you by Pfizer. And this is what Albert Bourla did to become the world's top authority on vaccines during a time when his product basically had a monopoly over certain countries, at least, right? And I don't think the poor people in Israel getting those injections knew how Albert Bourla got to be Albert Bourla, CEO of Pfizer. If you would have told me that you're going to take an injection, some sort of experimental gene therapy from a guy who learned his trade on chemically castrating hogs, I'd say no, thank you, please. I'll take some vitamin D. I'll take some of these anti-parasitics that are working effectively, right? Ivermectin and hydroxychloroquine. Those are anti-parasitics, right? That's interesting. The whole thing's just interesting. It's fascinating. It's a bunch of coincidences wrapped up into an enigma, buried inside a riddle. Nothing to see there. I'm sure the smart people like Fauci would have figured it out. There was something to see there. I trust him. I trust him like I trust St. Peter.
Exactly. And so you just ruined bacon for everybody. It's like, find out where your bacon comes from, because it's most likely a Pfizer product. And I'm going to take it one step further. I'll raise you one. Do you guys know
bacon with boar taint stuff in there?
Yeah. And if you're sprinkling cheese on your bacon, if you're making like a little skillet with a little scrambled eggs and bacon, did you know that cheese is made, part of the production process is a component called rennet. Now, rennet is kind of hard to produce, hard to source. If you're mass producing cheese at a massive level, you have to have something called fermentation produced chymosin, FPC, which is it's a GMO, genetically modified form of rennet that was made by Pfizer. Pfizer makes the GMO rennet used in most large-scale cheese production. And as of 2017, Pfizer has captured 90% of the cheese market. So 90% of the cheese out there in the grocery stores is made with genetically modified rennet from Pfizer. Sorry, guys. So find out
Everybody
where your
gonna start learning to make their own cheese now.
Yep, exactly. So
did you see the raw milk testing that's going to be happening? Well, milk supply in totality, but it seems to be going after raw milk. The biggest raw milk dairy in California, they're now testing for bird flu, but it's being rolled out in 6 states. The USDA is mandating it across the board.
I think, didn't I send you the clip probably 6 months ago, LD, where it was a British Rothchild right after World War II who had the milk testing pasteurization passed in the first place? It didn't seem like a new world order thing. It seemed like a legitimate health concern maybe at the time. Maybe people were getting sick. But it still goes to this day, and now you can't get raw milk. A lot of people don't know that. They don't know enough about milk. They think what they get at the store is milk. And it's like
what I thought was interesting about that document was that it kind of made, to me, it gave the impression like it's doable on a small scale. So you have to have lots of little dairies. And so I wonder what the tipping point is where it gets untenable. And I work at a raw milk dairy, and right now we milk 16 cows twice a day. And I can see where you're getting bigger and bigger, you'd run into more and more problems quickly.
Yeah, that makes sense.
I was just remembering one of my fond Channel 13 memories from when I was a kid. I didn't watch it a whole lot. Like I don't like that channel. It's like the Sesame Street channel when you're a kid. But they did have one video. There was a I don't know what it was. I'll describe it to you. There was a baby crying, and then they cut to a cow being milked, and the whole process of the milk getting in the tanker to get to the milkman to be delivered so the mother could give milk to her baby, right? Now, if you think about that in hindsight, mothers come with milk. That's part of the gig, usually, unless there's a medical circumstance. You don't need a crying baby waiting for a milkman unless you're living in a highly civilized society that the mother has to be out working 40 hours a week and the baby has to have, by then it was like Similac or like Milkman milk and stuff like that. So, yeah, those things continue to change in our society. More people are aware of breastfeeding today than maybe back then. Maybe. All right. So I have to change topic away from the boobies, though. I found these articles about the potential killer. I don't think he's still alive, but who wants a libel or slander suit right now in these days? These were not easy to find. I've had to go through more trouble to find what I'm about to show you than anything probably in the history of this show that I have knowledge of, and then it's not there, so you have to go find it. So let me break in for a couple minutes to show you guys what's where and where you can find it. So first off, in the Wayback Machine, you can find Jose Sangenis Perdomo's Wikispooks page, and I did get one of those pages to load. It doesn't have nice formatting, but I will read a few lines so you know it exists and why you might want to learn about people in history like this. Jose Sangenis Perdomo from Wikispooks. Let's see. Assassin, born 25th May 1935, Havana. Residence, Miami. Let's go down here. A man of many aliases. So here's his aliases. Was a chief of police during Cuban President Carlos Prio's regime, who went into exile after Fidel Castro took power. So he comes to start working for the CIA. Working with the CIA Miami station, he recruited most of the members of Operation 40, a CIA assassination team. Okay? So when Kennedy gets killed and some of the people who have a grudge against him have been training assassination teams, you might want to look into that. Jose Perdomo was working as night doorman at the Dakota Hotel, with Dakota Apartments, December 8th, 1980, when John Lennon was killed, and told the police that Mark Chapman was the assassin, a fact unmentioned by commercially controlled media until March 1987. So that doesn't come out till 7 years after his assassination. So you can go on and learn more about him, right? There's an extensive, a bit of information there. But I did find a Jerry Mazza article. He was a investigative journalist and muckraker. I knew him personally. I don't think he's probably still alive because this is 19 years ago. And it was called On the 25th Anniversary of John Lennon's Assassination, Imagine. So if I took that source link that is dead, put it into the Wayback Machine, I went back and found the first reference from 2005 when he published it. And yeah, so it was published yesterday, 19 years ago. So I'll read a few pages, or I'll read a few lines for you so you know if you want to look it up and find it for yourself. Imagine that the classic lone gunman could be Mark David Chapman. And if so, you may be as mind controlled by the system hype as he was that Monday night at 10:50 p.m., December 8th, 1980, just 1 month after Ronald Reagan was elected president. Imagine that night John Lennon took 4 shots fired from a .38 caliber snub-nose revolver, 2 in the left shoulder, 2 in the upper side of the back, as he walked through the dark entryway at the Dakota Hotel at 72nd Street in Central Park West. What's strange is that afterwards, 3 bullet holes were found in the glass lobby doors. Huh. Imagine that earlier that day. So he goes into using the word imagine to give you these ideas of there's things going on that you're not being told, right? Imagine that Chapman called out Mr. Lennon, and when he turned back, Mark squared off and fired 5 shots. But Chapman told a judge later at his sentencing hearing that he didn't say a word to Lennon, nor did he run away. There's a subway station to descend maybe 60 feet away, but perhaps innocent, even if programmed, people can't run. Imagine the doorman on duty, one Jose Perdomo, supposedly screamed, "Leave, get out of here." Then he asked Chapman, "Do you know what you've done?" And he said, "I just shot John Lennon." Chapman said said matter-of-factly. Then we're told he threw down his gun, took off his coat, folded his feet, calmly started reading a paperback, Catcher in the Rye. Perdomo kicked the gun away. So imagine minutes later, Perdomo identified Chapman as the killer, as the cops arrived. So now, Scott, given what you know, do you think the doorman might have had something to do with this? Like, it's been left out of the story other than Jerry. He's the only person I've ever seen cover it. And as you just saw, like, they deep six this type of thing, you can't find it on a search.
Honestly, I've always kind of heard that there was something suspicious about the John Lennon assassination, but I hadn't really looked into it, and I didn't realize that. See, I was thinking it was more like Chapman was like an MK Ultra type Manchurian candidate. I thought that was the angle of the conspiracy. I didn't even know that there was like another alternative shooter theory. So this is all.
And if you look at
this is fascinating.
RFK's assassination, Sirhan Sirhan program was in front.
Yep,
and he was shot from the back.
Yep. I knew about that one. But this is new information. So this is fascinating. And just like what I've written down earlier, like after that news clip, it's like, isn't like the whole point of like a forensic autopsy is to like figure out exactly how the shooting took place, the entry wounds, exit wounds, like all that stuff. But how was it like it was ruled one thing, and then 30 years later, information was presented that changed people's minds about it? Like that just doesn't even like make sense. It doesn't make sense. So yeah.
Jerry's from New York City. He's probably in his 60s 20 years ago when I met him. He lived in New York City, and he was there. He was in the city when Lennon was shot. And then he eventually went to the police station. He read the police reports, and he discovered the contradictions. And so on the 25th anniversary, you have like the culmination of a lot of years of researching this incident, right? So if you are looking for what don't I know about this crime, this on the 25th anniversary of John Lennon's assassination, imagine an article by Jerry Mazza from December 7th, 2005, published in the online journal and found through the Wayback Machine. It is worth your time in reading. There's not a lot of things these days. It's like, yeah, read the whole thing. It's like this whole thing. And actually most of what Jerry wrote back then, stands to this day as evergreen stuff that you're going to find facts that you weren't finding elsewhere. So I just wanted to put that out there. And then the connection would be what's the connection between the Queen, whom he snubbed, the United States government, the CIA, and the NYPD? Is there like is there a drug connection there? Is there a black market slavery connection there? Is there a whole lot of foreign affairs skullduggery there? Yeah. So there were powerful people with means, motive, opportunity. You know, if John Lennon sings a song about John Sinclair, who got a bunch of time in jail for smoking a joint under a stairwell type thing, right? What if John Lennon turns his eye on the opium epidemic and all these other things going on? Because it was right after John Lennon's assassination that this type of information started coming out. And then those powers that I just mentioned, they made SNL skits to make fun of it and to, use a whole bunch of their techniques to be like, oh, it's conspiracy theory, nothing to see there. But as you see, if you understand that, the CIA is training assassins and that one of those assassins is unemployed working as a doorman in a apartment building in New York that the world's most famous rock star who stands up against the empire happens to live at, and just happens, like, you believe in coincidences way too much. Like, there should not be that many, At the end of the movie Sneakers, which is about espionage, it said too many secrets. And I think people should get to realize, like, when you have too many coincidences, that's the real problem there. When there's too many ways for this lone gunman to get away in the United Healthcare assassination, like, could you leave more information behind? You left a water bottle with a smudged fingerprint. You got protein bars. You went to Starbucks. Like, this guy didn't bring anything to the assassination. He's like, oh, I better fuel up when I get to the site. Like, that's someone leaving a trail to be followed. Like, when you write on the casings, what if it was a bunch of CEOs meeting with their lawyers? The lawyers met with some bagmen, and they say, we got to get rid of the CEO. If trial's coming up or what have you, how do we make it look like it wasn't us? They got this insurance book, bunch of people complaining, boss. We write this on the casings. We leave a big trail. They go off. Like, it's all a wild goose chase. If you look at the evidence, it's too obvious. Like, didn't you watch movies where they're like, there's too many clues? What is this, Murder on the Orient Express? Everybody did it. Everybody did it. All the CEOs, I don't know, but it's not what the public is being told. You can be damn sure at this point in the week, that's not what's going on. Any observations on that, Scott? I know I had a bit of a rant there.
No, that's really fascinating stuff, man. I'm going to definitely look into that more. And it's really interesting though. Like, they don't, I mean, I feel like back in the day, and I've kind of made this observation before, like back in the day, that seemed to be like their go-to move was assassination. Like it really did, like MLK, RFK, like, all
they made movies
rights
about
people.
it, man. Parallax View, where they whack people who get onto their trail. Very discouraging.
It seems like that was
Constant Gardner.
Yeah.
Go watch it. I was a whistleblower and I watched Constant Gardner with my wife, and I'm like, oh, dude, this is maybe worse than, like,
yeah.
We should be better educated if we're going onto the field of battle in the world. You need to be told what's going on out there.
Yep. And it's like, so now, but you don't really see that as much these days. The actual like political assassination, the assassination of very outspoken, thought leaders, stuff like that. It's more about, I'd say nowadays, more about subversion, capturing, corrupting, and blackmail. Yeah, blackmailing.
Deep capture, blackmail.
Exactly.
Those sort of
Exactly.
things.
So steering people in the direction they want through intimidation or blackmail. I think it's just mostly blackmail now. They kind of realized the twofold idea that, assassination, it's going to bring a lot of heat. It's going to turn these people into heroes and icons, martyrs, and they're much more useful alive, but doing our bidding instead. So how do we get them alone in a room in a compromising situation and that sort of thing? And so I think they kind of wised up and realized that it's much more to their advantage to keep them alive and bring them under their wing through nefarious means. So
I also wanted to point out that these global pharmaceutical companies that put on $1 trillion misinformation campaign, they definitely have no relation to the people who have this other synergistic power structure that works right in with the pain-killing industry. There is no connection between the two. One is not a public face and one is not a private face. I'm not, these are all coincidences, okay? I think it's also a coincidence that they all got protected because they had emergency use authorization to do uninformed testing on unconsenting patients because it was an emergency in a pandemic. I also know, I just want to point out for anyone who wants the not Nuremberg 2.0, but an actual trial, that if you lie for that thing, then you don't get that emergency use authorization, do you? Right? And they lied about that. So all that legal, like, you have to sign an NDA and somebody commits like a felony, the felony overrides the legality of that, right? So I'm just saying that they broke rules that can be inspected readily. And those people who were hurt can then sue those entities and get some sort of justice, but you can't get your loved ones back. So we should be vigilant so they don't do it again. Yeah.
Yep. Amen.
Just thoughts.
Amen.
All right. Now we have something unexpected, exciting, and new. These are all the things that get your attention, right? No, I'm not going to pitch you on autonomy. I want to show you what Scotty did this past week. He went to New York City during the same week that there's all those shenanigans going on with the United Healthcare search for the dude and all that. Scott went there and he thoughtfully served up some legal papers and put some of these big pharma companies on notice. He has a ton of footage. He has a 20-minute piece showing from like him getting there to going and doing all these things. What we're going to hone in on is where I think he gets the Merck, and then we're going to go through where he goes to Pfizer, because I do want you to see how this process is conducted, how these people have no idea what's going on. So you're going to have to be patient with them while they figure out who can receive the paperwork and these sort of things. Knowing how to serve paperwork and construct a lawsuit against people who have aggrieved you is a useful tactic in intellectual self-defense. And for Scott, it's a chance for him to demonstrate his leadership capabilities, because any number of people, you could have seen James O'Keefe doing this, but you didn't. I guess O'Keefe, he's got other things going on. So Scott, who did you go to New York with? Who did you do this with in these videos?
Yeah, I'll set this up a little bit. So I'll tell you guys a little bit about the lawsuit. So it's called the Great Team Humanity lawsuit, and this has been put together by Shelby Hosanna, who is the CEO and founder of Unjected, and a group of freedom fighters that she knows out in Hawaii. So those are the initial plaintiffs on the initial filing of this lawsuit, which has been filed in the Southern District of Texas. It's in federal courts right now. And the judge, I can't remember the name off the top of his head, but he issued a stop to the nationwide vaccine mandate. So we have a good judge on the trial or on the case. We are soliciting more plaintiffs. So if you've been injured by the vaccines, it's actually a pretty broad lawsuit. It encompasses not only the damages from the vaccines, but also the mask mandates. It encompasses the open borders. It talks about geoengineering and the dangers of that. So it's a pretty broad claim and complaint and injunctions, lots of injunctions built into it. It is being filed against it's pretty much every agency of the federal government, the Biden administration, every senator, every representative of Congress, every regulatory agency, FDA, CDC, EPA, FEMA, every branch of the military, every single commercial airline for the geoengineering stuff, and of course, all the pharmaceutical companies. So it's a very intense lawsuit. Oh, and the Lahaina fires is wrapped into it. So we have Governor Josh Green from Hawaii, some of the mayors in Maui, some of the education departments out in Hawaii. So it's a pretty intense lawsuit. If you go to humanitysuit.com, there's a link that says become a plaintiff. You can click on that and it takes you to a Google Drive where you can actually read the lawsuit. You can read the complaint. You can actually become a plaintiff if you want. We're working on getting it to class action status. Now, I am not a plaintiff, which allows me the breadth of being kind of the queen on the chessboard, where I can kind of go do all the things that a plaintiff normally wouldn't be able to do, which includes serving paperwork. So most of the defendants were able to be served, like all the federal agencies and all the federal individuals. There's a lot of individuals on there, like Mayorkas and and within, it's crazy. Just go read the lawsuit. It's pretty wild. Like thousands of defendants on there. Most of them were able to be served electronically. So, for example, an attorney general's office was able to serve all of the federal agencies and individuals, but the private corporations, the airlines, and the pharmaceutical companies needed to be served in person. So, what you're about to see here is, and we knew it was going to be crazy and intense, and so we kind of took it. We decided to make a whole thing out of it. I brought my camera equipment and flew into Newark Airport, New Jersey. And it's really interesting how there's all of these pharmaceutical companies, their headquarters are kind of in a very tight radius in New Jersey and in New York City. So shout out to our boy Zach Brown from the Unfit Statesman podcast, who's also the co-host of the Unjected show. He was my camera guy. He lives in New Jersey. And so it's all very serendipitous the way it all worked out. And so he picked me up in my hotel and we drove around and served all these bastards. And so you get to see from the inside, in the belly of the beast, of all of these different agencies. I don't think we're going to get through the whole thing, but I want to encourage you guys to go watch the whole thing and share it. Please share it.
Where can they do that?
It's on our Twitter page. It's on the Unjected Show Rumble page. It's on the Unjected YouTube channel, which we haven't really utilized very much, so it has like 3 views. But I would say share it off of Twitter if you can. Just go to our Unjected Twitter page and just retweet it, get it out there. Because we're trying to get excitement around it, and we're trying to solicit more plaintiffs. At the end of the day, I don't, whether or not this gets anywhere in the courts or whatever, just the fact that movement is being done, things are happening, just putting them on the defensive, wasting their time. Now their lawyers have 21 days to respond to this, or it's a default judgment against them. So they have to take this paperwork, whether they refuse it or not, it is still being served. And it can just be a person that works at the front desk, because the law says that a service to agent is service to principal, which means if I serve any agent representative of the company, then that is the company itself being served. So what you'll see here is a lot of refusals. But but at the same time, it's like that is us fulfilling our legal obligation to notify that company has been served. And it's funny because the people that are being served, obviously, we're all people, and it's like that is like an affront. It's like, oh, I'm automatically on the defensive. And it's like, if I refuse, then it's like in their mind, oh, it just goes away and we don't have to deal with this. It's like, no, that's not how that works. That's not how this works.
It goes on the record that you refused.
Yeah, exactly. But it's like, so anyway, so it's pretty exciting stuff. And to me, it's like, this is just a victory for the home team. This is getting the morale up for the troops. You know what I mean? It's like, come on, guys. Like, there's all kinds of lawsuits going on, and we're just getting in their faces and letting them know that Team Humanity is not going to deal with their shit anymore. So there you go.
And like I said, this isn't Project Veritas or O'Keefe Media or InfoWars, big budget places that did this. What was your budget for this project?
I came out of pocket, so this is all out of pocket. This is, some of the plaintiffs pooled some money together to help cover some of my expenses, but for the most part, I came out fully out of pocket for this entire thing. And so
the old-fashioned way with no excuses, right?
Yep, no excuses. And to me, it's like I look at it as like street cred. I got about 1,000 followers on Instagram from it. It's like, it's a very much worthy investment. You know what I'm saying? And it's a lot of fun. We had a blast. Zach and I were just pigging out on, I was like, take us to the best Italian restaurant on me, bro. And we're just like, we're eating some good Italian food right there in Newark, man. I was loving it, loving every minute of it. Had a blast. So to me, it's like, dude, I couldn't, just the fact that I get to be on the front lines doing this is the greatest honor of my life. I just love it. And I can't even believe that I have the honor of being in this position. So to me, it's just like, yeah, what else am I going to spend my money on, dude?
I think also the fact that you have an affable attitude when you're attempting to do such things also helps your endeavor. Because if you went in there bullhorning and like doing, you're like, hey, I'm a human being. You're another human being. Let's communicate on a different level than just like shouting at each other or, doing stuff for the camera and not actually doing the thing in human reality. Right. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So these are things that freedom-minded people, we have a unique opportunity in human history to be able to do such things. Right. So to write some words on paper, to walk over and be part of a process that is their process, right? You're using the rules to defend innocent people against actions taken by those entities that no one else is standing up for. So you're right. You might just be throwing a pebble and they might have a castle, but other people might be like, hey, that's a good idea. And I have a trebuchet and a heavy boulder. Right. And the next person's like, oh, you think that's good. And then, it gets more attention. So sometimes it's just about being a leader and starting a trend, even if that trend starts with a early not success. Right. Because like, what are the odds?
Yeah.
You got a lot of agencies named and all those different pharma companies.
And we got
right?
literally like between all of them, they have trillions of dollars. They could do anything, dude. They're gonna send some dude with a freaking pistol, like cocking it over and over to my door, dude. Like, I don't know, dude. Like, I'm prepared. Like, I thought about that sort of thing. So if you're watching Secret Service, never mind. No. I'll answer the door and be very friendly to you. But what the fuck? No, we were just talking about how polite and above board this all is. And that's how it's going to be. That's how it's all going to be. This is an information war. This is an ideology war. This is not a physical confrontation. And that's the whole point. Even though Pfizer, as you'll see, took it as, like some sort of threat to their whatever, you'll see. But it ain't like that, everybody. Any of the federal agencies watching right now, it's all peace and love, man. And you know what you did. You know what you did.
It's like that movie where the dude opens the door and he gets kicked in the nuts. It's like, why? She's like, you know what you did. You know what you did. Yeah, I mean, people who covered up for Fauci covered up because they know he's lying. That's why they did those things, to help the liar get away with those things. Yep. So let's go to Scott gallivanting around New Jersey and New York City. You'll get to see what modern day New York City looks like a little bit. Let's go to that. And then we're going to cut to Paul Joseph Watson. And it seems like they got a similar migration problem over there. And the example he drew, I was like, wow. Like that's going on. Never in history would that have gone on except right now. So we got to show it to you. So let's go to Scott, serving it up over in New Jersey.
What's up, everybody? We're in Princeton, New Jersey, and we are here at the corporate headquarters of Moderna, serving legal paperwork. Let's do it. Level 2. There it is. Bro, this is so epic. This is so freaking epic. Oh, sorry, I didn't know if I need to be buzzed in or not. Oh, sorry, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
Good, so we have legal paperwork to serve?
Sure.
Yeah. I was just wondering if there was somebody here representative of Moderna that we could hand this to?
Have you talked to anybody?
No. No, this is just a legal summons that we need to hand to somebody that works at Moderna.
Okay, sure.
Yeah. Thank you so much.
Can I have your name, please?
My name's Scott.
Scott?
Yes.
All right. And who are you with? Like,
Team Humanity. Mm-hmm. So wild. Wow. Hi there. So we were with Team Humanity. We needed to serve some legal paperwork to somebody that works at Moderna.
Okay, you guys are recording?
Yeah.
You guys have to step outside. You can't record it.
Okay.
Thank you so much.
But
I'll be right back. Let me
okay.
get someone.
Thank you. Here we go. Here we go. Get up in. Hi there. No cameras. Okay, you can turn it off. Yeah. Okay. So we're with Team Humanity, and we are just here to serve some legal paperwork to Moderna, and we just need to hand this to you.
I'm not an attorney.
That's okay. You don't need to be an attorney. Somebody at the company just needs to. This is just legal. This is a legal serving. So.
Okay. Let me call our legal department. Can
Perfect.
You wait a moment?
No problem. Thank you.
All right, I'll
Thank
be
you.
right back.
No problem. Drop service.
Okay.
We can do drop service.
Okay.
Okay.
Can you just give us a couple minutes?
Yeah, it's fine. It's fine. And it says that we can just leave. We can just literally leave it.
Just leave it at the door as long as we document that we did it. Like I can just take a quick shot of.
I mean, I'd rather have it on film that we're handing it to somebody, and they can say turn off the camera. We can say, hey, how about you stop murdering 100 million people, motherfucker. So we're gonna go. We've got a bunch more of these to do. So we're just gonna leave it here and document that we're leaving it here for you guys. Okay. So. All right. So go ahead.
Feel free. So.
Clean out here. They're gonna probably grab it.
Well, it's your guys' legal obligation to take it.
Yeah. So.
It's your legal obligation to take it. Like, this is technically obstruction of justice right here. So we're just gonna leave it, and I suggest you guys take it. Go ahead and document.
Okay.
Okay. All right. We left the documents here. This is the Yellen versus Biden et al. Okay. We left it for Moderna right here. Yeah. So there you go. Team Humanity, baby. Team Humanity. All right, well, we are leaving the Moderna building. They refused to take the legal paperwork, and so we left it there for them, and we're just on our way to the next one. Let's go. All right, Scott with Team Humanity. We are here at 1 Johnson & Johnson Plaza. We are at the Johnson & Johnson World Headquarters with some legal paperwork. Let's do it. Main entrance. Let's see, the record light's covered. We are just all up in that ass. Team Humanity, motherfucker. Team Humanity. Doesn't look like much of a main entrance. Looks like a hidden secret entrance. Okay. Beautiful. Beautiful. Hello.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I have some legal paperwork here that we need to hand to somebody at Johnson & Johnson.
Okay. Have a seat, please.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here at Johnson & Johnson Corporate World Headquarters. And it's a beautiful day. These guys are really cool. They're professionals. They seem to be used to this sort of thing. Not like Moderna. Moderna, they were crapping their britches. They didn't know what to do. They were like little children. They were like, oh my God, I'm not going to take this. Mm-hmm. Hi there. How are you? Good. Hi, so we're with Team Humanity serving legal paperwork to Johnson & Johnson for crimes against humanity. Thank you so much.
Got it.
No, J&J, no cameras. You have
Okay.
to camera pass.
Okay.
You're welcome.
Are you still rolling? Still rolling? Yeah. Oh, yeah. That was so good for crimes against humanity. We got her, dude. That was so funny. After we were sitting there for 10 minutes. We were sitting there for 10 minutes with the camera going. The guy's like, oh, excuse me, no camera, no camera. Crimes against humanity, Johnson & Johnson. You are on notice. You have been served, Johnson & Johnson. You have been served for crimes against humanity. Whew. Ladies and gentlemen, we are at Merck. All right, go on. Hey there. Good, how are you? So we just have some legal paperwork that we needed to drop off, please.
Legal paperwork.
Yes, we. For Merck. Just it has to be any employee at Merck can accept it.
Well, who are you? Okay.
We're just serving a summons here.
And is that camera on?
Yeah, it's just for the document that we have to serve this here.
Hold on a second.
Okay, thank you. Hi there. Hi, we just had some legal paperwork we wanted to drop off to you guys.
Guys, you can't film it here.
Just a summons. Okay, you can turn it.
Thank you. What is this?
It's just a legal summons. We're on behalf of Team Humanity, and we're just serving for crimes against humanity.
Crimes against humanity?
Yes, sir. All right, thank you guys.
This way, guys. This way.
Okay.
Hold on, wait. Do you guys have any business cards?
I don't know. We're just dropping paper off.
Let's escort them over there to so they could not come home with a proxy.
No, this isn't legal. This is something completely different.
Also might be stuck.
Not legal.
Not
legal.
So you can't undo and not at a genuine time?
All right, let's go, Zach.
You guys good?
Yeah, we're good. We're good if you're good.
Okay.
You parked right here?
Yeah, we're just right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, I thought you guys walked down to the side from.
No, we're good. No. Appreciate you guys' help.
Yeah. Just so you guys know, private property outside you can, on site you can't, obviously.
Okay.
Okay. You guys are in here?
Yeah, we're on our way. We're out. All right. Thank you.
Yep.
They're flummoxed. They didn't know what to do. Nah, they're good. They didn't know what to do. They didn't know what to do with us. They had no idea what to do with us. Did you see that? They fucking surrounded the building, bro. They were looking for a takedown. How you feeling about shit, Zach?
I feel like I gotta piss. They always take so goddamn long. Just take the papers.
Just take the papers. Quit being a little bitch. You know what you did. Yeah. You just got murked. Yeah, just keep it down. But keep it up like you're filming me, though. But just be covert about it. Oh. Hi there. How are you? Good. So we have some legal paperwork that we just needed to hand to somebody that works for Pfizer.
Unfortunately, we are not allowed to, but we are told that you have to go to city court.
City court? What does that mean?
That will be, because we don't allow any, we don't accept anything about legal.
Let me just call real quick here.
Want to call Shelby?
Yeah, let me just call our legal people real quick and just make sure that. Can you hear me? Hey, they're telling us we have to go somewhere else at Pfizer. Okay, So we can just leave it here. They're refusing it. They're refusing it. Okay.
That's okay.
Okay.
So you've been served.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay, sounds good. All right. Okay. All right, so what they're saying is like we can just leave it here and this is considered being served.
We're not get in trouble.
Okay, well this is us serving Pfizer Corporation.
No, you can leave it there. No, sir, you can't take security and can leave it.
That's all we're served. You've been served. Pfizer, you've been served.
No one touched it.
Okay. You've been served. You've been served. You've been served. I don't have to do motherfucking shit. You've been served. You've been served, Pfizer, for crimes against humanity. You've been served for crimes against humanity. Let's go. They're chasing us. They're calling the police. Hey, what's up? We're at the World Health Organization, World Headquarters, baby. Having a good time. United States location, World Health Organization. Would it be possible to leave with you guys to hand to them?
We got a message center downstairs. You want to leave it downstairs?
What's that?
Message center.
Just set it there?
We can leave it there. They can do it later.
Can we? Is it okay if we go up there to do it?
No, the message center is downstairs. I have people in the message center.
Oh, okay. Oh, to the message center. Okay.
And just take it upstairs.
Okay, perfect. How do we? Okay, how do we get down there? Is it just down
here? Eric, you have an appointment or? Now the message center will take you.
Okay, great.
Job already.
Okay.
You've seen some of the cozy 3- and 4-star hotels being used to house illegal boat migrants at taxpayer expense. Well, check out where the government, at a cost of £8 million a day, is choosing to put them up now, in a literal grand manor house.
Madeley Court Hotel in Telford. 16th century, what I would describe as a castle. This is your open borders immigration, while we have homeless dying in shop doorways and in tents. This is what we're giving to migrants.
Sorry if you're a pensioner who can't afford to put the heating on this winter because the government's just cut your fuel allowance. The money's been set aside for a far worthier group of people. On its website, Madeley Court Hotel in Telford invites visitors to enjoy the peaceful and historical surroundings at the Madeley Court Hotel Telford. Renowned for its superb service and cuisine, the hotel was a 16th century manor house and is steeped in history with many original features and characterful decoration. It offers both the facilities of a modern hotel and the ambience of a beautiful manor house in countryside surroundings. The conservatory area with resplendent, stylish furnishings and a lakeside view makes for the perfect place to relax after a hectic day. Not a bad place to rest your head after a hectic day of illegally entering a country, then being treated better than guests checking in at a 5-star resort. Free taxi service, free accommodation, free food, free cash, free healthcare.
This is the open borders experiment. Want to jump on a boat from Georgia, where there's not a war, and be given a castle, while our elderly are freezing in their homes, and our homeless are dying in shop doorways? Jump in a dinghy. Come on, join the open borders experiment. Come here for free and get everything, because the taxpayer will pay it.
Do we really wonder why they keep coming? This is in Telford, where applications for homelessness support rose again in the last year. In England, 123,100 households were living in temporary accommodation as of June, including 81 in Telford and Wrekin, up from 105,750 the year before. The number of children facing homelessness in England, over 159,000, also rose 15% from last year, and is now the highest since record floods began. There's not enough accommodation available for our own kids, some of whom will be freezing on the streets this winter. There's not enough money to help pensioners pay to heat their homes. But if you're a 20-something young man from Eritrea, Iran or Afghanistan who arrived here illegally from France, they'll literally give you free food, free prepaid debit cards, free taxpayer-funded healthcare, and they'll put you up in a literal castle. If you value what I do and you want to help support me, please visit pauljosephwatson.local.
That's hilarious. They literally put you in a castle, you guys. And it's like, it's weird how like the same thing that's happening there is happening here. And it's like, I just don't get it, man. It's so wild.
Yeah, I mean,
it seems like it's a coordinated strategy.
8 million pounds a day. That's a lot of taxpayer money going over there. Lucky those people that own that hotel, I guess, but it's going to be probably changed afterwards.
Yeah,
right.
Crazy.
People from Georgia, which most Americans think is just a state in America, but it's a whole country over there after the Soviet Union collapsed. And if they're being displaced from Georgia and being brought to the UK, I can only guess that the UK's government and foreign policy has created some ruckus in Georgia that made those people move. And they gave him political asylum.
Also, you can take
what goes on here.
Exactly. Look at South America. Like who's responsible for all the chaos and economic turmoil and all of these, Central and South American countries falling into disarray, or even Mexico, right? Mexico, the cartels are able to exist because of United States laws and policies and lack of laws and lack of enforcement of laws, and then also the gun or the drug laws that are in place in general. It's just like, gosh.
Times they are changing, man. It's just not, things aren't like they used to be.
Twice a year, I teach a course called Autonomy. It's a 12-week course. It teaches leadership, entrepreneur skills, executive skills, all these types of things that I saw were taken out of our education system in order to make the schooling or indoctrination system that we've all probably went through. And it has served us well enough to be interchangeable cogs in the machine of the globalists. But if we want a homestead, if we want write our own ticket, work from home job, work from anywhere type of situation, they're not exactly handing those out at the end of college. They give you a piece of paper and they're like, good luck. So reality is dropping us off here, but the demands of reality are up here. So I created Autonomy to help people close that gap for themselves so they can level up their skills to the demands of the situations that life is putting in front of us presently. Life's demands of intellect and understanding precision and complexity are ever increasing. The schooling didn't prepare us for it. The media is not going to do anything but reinforce what schooling prepared us for. And so we're going to have to take a leadership position and take steps off the beaten path to kind of blaze our own trail in life. What makes the Grand Theft World podcast unique, invigorating, exciting, and informative? Most other podcasts out there are either doing straight up interviews or they're just covering the daily news. They're covering current events from the day they happened. And that is effective. It's useful. It's a great starting point. And then sometimes these current events change during the week past the first story. So we like to give it a little time. You have to wait till some of the dust settles on these stories in order to give them accurate coverage. And the other thing that's really missing in the media landscape is covering the articles that are coming out every day. That's great. That's necessary. But who's bringing in contextual history so that you can understand what has been going on for decades and decades to lead up to the machinations and actions that we see unfolding today? So what we do here on the podcast is we cover current events. Many of these things are censored, but we wait about a week. As a forensic historian, I focused mainly through my career on the history of globalism and collectivism and things that they call maybe the New World Order. There's a lot of facts to these sort of circumstances, groups, events, activities, working groups that they've had over time. So for Grand Theft World listeners, we not only break down the current events, most of which that are censored during the week, we provide you with contextual history, we give you the source notes, the references, we do deep dives, And this really empowers you with an understanding of context and history so that you can make more informed decisions in your life. There's also a community, a membership where you guys can actually ask questions and we can get into the show and we can share evidence. And there's a town hall weekly for Grand Theft World for those who listen to it and are interested in covering the stories that we don't get to during a 6-hour show. Listening to it an hour a day, you could easily consume the week's news, but you're going to have substance and meaning and context and understanding. And with that, you can make higher quality decisions in your life. So if you're interested in more quality in your life, go to grandtheftworld.com, click podcast at the top, and we'll see you there. Thank you.
These allegations are false.
This isn't Grand Theft Auto, folks. This isn't a video game.
What are the most surprising things that you discovered once you started pulling on that thread? Who he was connected to, what institutions he was influential over, what events he participated in?
Come on, man. What are we talking about? Come on, man. No.
You don't have to think about it, dude.
I got this quote because you said you didn't know much about Klaus Schwab. I made it my job to, as soon as this happened, I'm like, okay, this guy's their front man. Let me learn about the official history of the World Economic Forum. I got their 40-year history. I got every book that Klaus Schwab has written or ghostwritten. I went through those books. This is one of the most interesting passages.
Come on, man. Come on.